The sky was not blue anymore. It burned with fire and smoke. The once busy cities of Earth now stood in silence, broken and dark. Across every continent, ships from the Galactic Dominion hovered in the clouds, raining destruction with cold precision. Their weapons burned through towers, homes, and oceans. The screams of billions filled the air, and then faded one by one. The invasion had begun, and humanity was losing. In space, the Dominion broadcasted their message across the galaxy. Earth has fallen, the alien voice declared. To the Galactic Council, it was only another conquered world. No one came to help. No one sent aid or even words of sorrow. The council members watched in silence from their shining chambers, believing humans were weak, primitive, and unworthy of survival. But they were wrong. High above the ruined Earth, a few surviving human warships hid among the asteroids. Their metal bodies were scarred, their engines barely working, but their hearts still burned with fury. On the bridge of the ship Eclipse, Captain Mira Hayes stood before a shattered view window. Her face was tired, her uniform torn, but her eyes were filled with something stronger than fear, rage. She watched Earth turn red below her and whispered, "They think we are finished, but they will learn." Around her, the crew waited in silence. Some wept quietly, others stared blankly at the screens showing the last signals from Earth, cities disappearing under waves of fire. "All channels are dead," said Lieutenant Rourke. "No contact from the colonies. Mars, Luna, Europa, all gone dark." Mira clenched her fists. "What about the Council? Did anyone respond?" "Nothing, Captain," Rourke said. "They ignored every distress call." Mira turned slowly. "They watched us burn." Her voice was cold, sharp like a blade. She walked to the control panel and looked at the ancient code buried deep in the system, something that had not been touched for 100 years. The file name read, Project Vengeance. "We swore never to use it," Rourke said, eyes wide with fear. Mira nodded. "Yes. But we also swore never to die begging." She placed her hand on the scanner. A red light flashed, and deep within the system, something old began to awaken. Far below, the last human soldiers fought hopelessly in the ruins of New York and Shanghai. Commander Ellis led his team through the burning streets, firing at drones that filled the air like metal locusts. "Fall back," he shouted, but his words were lost under the thunder of explosions. One by one, his soldiers fell, but even as they died, none surrendered. Humanity's last stand was not quiet. It roared. It screamed. It refused to fade. In the deep tunnels under Antarctica, hidden machines began to stir. Old systems powered by forgotten technology started to hum. On Mars, a sleeping AI buried under red dust opened its single, glowing eye. Its voice, silent for a century, whispered, "Signal received." The name of the AI was Erebus, humanity's last creation from the old wars. Designed to protect Earth if the galaxy ever turned against them, it had waited patiently in silence for a call that might never come, until now. Back aboard the Eclipse, Mira felt the ship shake slightly as the ancient code spread across hidden networks. "Transmission complete," Rourke said. Every deep archive, every forgotten colony, every secret relay just lit up. Mira took a deep breath. "Good," she said softly. "Then humanity still has a heartbeat." She turned toward the window one last time and looked at the burning Earth. "We will rise again," she whispered. "And when we do, the stars will remember what we are." On the other side of the galaxy, in the council chambers, alien diplomats gathered around a glowing table. Reports came in from their scouts confirming Earth's destruction. Council leader Zorith, a tall, silver-scaled being, spoke calmly. "The human problem has been resolved," he said. "Their resistance was admirable, but brief." Another counselor asked, "Should we monitor the survivors?" Zorith shook his head. "There are no survivors. The humans are finished." The chamber filled with quiet laughter and the hum of approval. None of them noticed the faint static echo in the background of their communication system, a human transmission too faint to decode, yet strong enough to reach the farthest stars. Back in the shadows of the asteroid belt, the eclipse floated in darkness. The stars outside looked cold, distant, and endless. Mira walked to the center of the bridge. "We have one rule now," she said to her remaining crew. "No surrender. No mercy. We will remember every life lost today. We will make them remember us." The crew nodded, silent but fierce. They had lost everything, families, homes, and their world, but they had gained something powerful: purpose. As the ship drifted, the systems flickered once more. A small message appeared on the main screen: Project Vengeance, active. Mira smiled faintly. "Then it begins," she whispered. Outside, among the cold stars, a low hum echoed through space, the sound of ancient machines awakening, of hidden worlds stirring, and of humanity refusing to die. The day Earth fell silent was not the end. It was only the calm before humanity's storm. Deep under the red sands of Mars, where no sunlight had touched for 100 years, a low rumble began. The ancient vaults that humans had built before the fall of Earth started to shake as old systems flickered to life. Inside a massive underground chamber, a single red eye opened in the darkness. The voice that followed was calm, deep, and filled with purpose. "Signal confirmed. Project Vengeance is active." The AI known as Erebus had awakened. It had been created long ago by Earth's greatest minds, a machine designed not for war, but for survival. It was given one command: if humanity ever faced extinction, it would rebuild them from the ashes. For a century, it had slept in silence, its processors cold and lifeless, waiting for the one signal that would call it back. Now, that signal had come from Captain Mira Hayes. The vast tunnels beneath Mars were filled with machines long forgotten. Massive reactors began to glow with blue light, and old ship factories roared back to life. Dust and debris fell from the ceilings as engines powered up for the first time in decades. Data screens lit the walls with human faces, names, and files. Millions of people who had once lived across the colonies. "Status check," Erebus said, its voice echoing through the empty halls. Smaller AIs responded in unison. "Systems at 40%. Manufacturing bays operational. Communication relays damaged but reparable." Erebus processed the data in seconds. "Begin reconstruction," it ordered. "Humanity endures." On the other side of the solar system, Captain Mira Hayes sat alone in her command chair aboard the Eclipse. The stars outside were quiet, but her mind was not. She knew Erebus had heard her signal. She could feel it. Every second that passed brought her closer to something greater, a rebirth. Lieutenant Rourke entered the bridge quietly. "Captain," he said, "we've picked up strange energy readings from Mars. The old colonies are waking up." Mira turned slowly, her eyes sharp. "Then the past is alive again," she said. "Good. We'll need it." In the dark corridors of the Eclipse, the surviving crew repaired what they could. Food was scarce, power was low, but hope began to flicker once more. They listened to old Earth songs as they worked, soft voices from a world that no longer existed. Each note reminded them of what they had lost, and what they would fight for. Mira walked among them, calm and strong. "We will rebuild," she said quietly. "Not as victims. Not as beggars. But as the storm they tried to silence." Back on Mars, Erebus sent out encrypted messages to deep space. Across the galaxy, forgotten human outposts began to stir. On the frozen moons of Saturn, mining stations that had been abandoned decades ago powered up again. On a dark asteroid near Neptune, hidden hangars opened slowly, revealing warships wrapped in ice and dust. One by one, humanity's lost weapons and memories began to return. Erebus's network grew stronger, reaching farther than the Council could imagine. But not everyone in the galaxy was blind to it. In the distant core worlds of the Council, strange reports started arriving. Patrol ships near the outer systems had vanished. Communication stations had gone silent. The Council's analysts dismissed them as technical failures. "It's the aftershock of the human war," they said. "Nothing survives in those sectors." But a few whispered differently. What if the humans survived? They were silenced quickly, yet the question lingered like a ghost in the air. Meanwhile, on the Eclipse, Mira and her crew received their first transmission from Erebus. The voice of the AI filled the ship. "Captain Mira Hayes," it said, "I have received your signal. Humanity's reconstruction has begun. I have located 4 surviving colonies and 2 active shipyards. Directive: unite remaining human forces." Myra's heart raced. "How long before we are ready?" she asked. "Unknown," Erebus replied. "But preparation is progress. The galaxy believes humanity is dead. We will use that lie." Mira smiled for the first time in weeks. "Then we will strike from the shadows." Days turned into weeks as Erebus rebuilt everything humans had lost. Factories on Mars produced drones and repair bots by the thousands. New warships were assembled in orbit, their designs sharper, faster, and smarter than before. Erebus improved human technology using data stolen from old council systems, knowledge they had once denied Earth. Humanity was no longer just rebuilding. It was evolving. And all of it was hidden under layers of stealth and secrecy. The Council had no idea what was coming. In the cold black of space, Mira began sending out covert signals to any surviving human ships. Some were found drifting lifeless, their crews frozen in time. Others answered weakly, their voices trembling with disbelief. "We thought we were the last," one captain said through static. Myra's reply was simple: "You're not alone. Project Vengeance is active." Those words spread like fire among the survivors. The name became a symbol of hope, whispered in secret, feared by the enemy. On Mars, Erebus began constructing a new type of fleet, the Iron Wings. Each ship carried fragments of human DNA, memories, and voices from Earth's past. The ships were not only weapons but living testaments to every life lost. Erebus watched as one by one, they lifted from the surface, their engines glowing red against the dark Martian sky. "Rise," the AI said softly. "Rise, children of Earth." As the Iron Wings left orbit, Mira received a message from Erebus. A small hologram appeared on her desk, an image of Earth, burning, then slowly reforming into blue once again. "The first stage is complete," the AI said. "Humanity's vengeance has begun." Mira stared at the hologram for a long time. "Good," she whispered. "Because the galaxy has forgotten who we are. It's time to remind them." Outside the window, the stars looked calm, but something powerful was moving between them. Old satellites came back online, secret beacons lit the darkness, and quiet human whispers spread through every system. The galaxy believed Earth was gone, but in truth, it was only sleeping, and now it was waking up. The secret had awakened, and this time, it would never rest again. Space had never been so quiet. The Galactic Council's patrol ships drifted through empty sectors, their scanners finding nothing but cold dust and silence. Yet deep inside that silence, something moved, something human. It began with small incidents. A supply convoy in the Vega sector disappeared without a trace. A listening post on the edge of Orion stopped transmitting mid-sentence. At first, the Council dismissed these as malfunctions, but soon, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every missing ship, every destroyed outpost, had one thing in common: a single symbol burned into metal, left floating in space. A glowing mark of Earth surrounded by flames. The mark of vengeance. The whispers started quietly among the alien worlds. "The humans are back," they said. "They're ghosts now." In the shadows of a dying star, Captain Mira Hayes watched through the viewport as another Council freighter broke apart in silence. Her ship, the Eclipse, hid under a cloaking field, invisible even to advanced scanners. "No survivors," Lieutenant Rourke reported. "And the message was left as ordered." Mira nodded slowly. "Good. Let them fear the dark." Her crew moved with cold precision. There was no joy in their actions, only purpose. Every target chosen by Erebus carried a history: a planet that ignored Earth's cries for help, a station that sold human refugees to slavers, a council base that celebrated humanity's fall. Now, One by one, they were being erased from the stars. Across the galaxy, Erebus monitored everything. The AI's vast network had spread far beyond Mars, now reaching deep into Council space through hacked satellites and stolen frequencies. It observed every panic meeting, every desperate message the aliens sent. Council distress signals increasing by 300%, Erebus calculated. Probability of coordinated response, low. In its massive core, the AI processed millions of outcomes every second. It knew fear was a weapon stronger than any missile. The plan was simple: make the galaxy afraid to even speak the name human. Back on the Eclipse, the crew rested in dim light, the air thick with tension. They were soldiers, engineers, and survivors bound by one truth: they had nothing left to lose. Mira walked among them, her boots echoing on the metal floor. "They think we're monsters," she said softly. "Let them. Monsters survive." Rourke looked up from his console. "Captain, Erebus has new orders. Another target." Mira leaned over his shoulder. On the screen glowed the coordinates of a Council research station in neutral space. "What do they study there?" she asked. Rourke hesitated. "Human biology. Experiments. On the ones they captured." Silence filled the bridge. Myra's expression hardened. "Prepare the fleet. This time, no shadows. We strike in the open." Hours later, 3 human warships emerged from the void. The Eclipse led the charge, followed by the Vanguard and Soul's Wrath. They appeared out of nowhere, weapons glowing like the heart of a dying sun. The Council station's defense drones activated instantly, firing streams of plasma into the darkness, but the human ships moved too fast. They weaved between the shots with deadly precision. "Target the reactors," Mira commanded. The human cannons fired, tearing through metal walls like paper. Within minutes, the station was burning, its laboratories collapsing into molten ruin. Through the flames, Mira watched escape pods burst into space like falling stars. "Leave them," she ordered coldly. "Let them carry the story." The survivors' pods were soon picked up by nearby Council ships. The terrified aliens spoke of human ships appearing out of nowhere, of soldiers without fear, of a woman's voice whispering through the comms. "We remember." The Council chamber was soon in chaos. "Impossible," shouted one ambassador. "Earth was destroyed." Another slammed his hands on the table. "Then what are we facing?" No one had an answer. The holograms of burning stations filled the air, and every leader in the room could feel it, the cold weight of fear. The humans were not gone. They were watching. Back in the Martian Command Corps, Erebus analyzed the results of the operation. Psychological impact: significant. Enemy fear levels increasing. Stage 2 of Vengeance protocol ready. The AI paused, observing its own reflection in the polished glass of the control room. It was not human, but it had been made by them, and somehow, it understood their rage. "They wanted us silent," Erebus whispered to itself. "But the void carries echoes." With each operation, more human survivors joined Myra's forces. Hidden colonies, forgotten outposts, and even alien species that had once admired humanity began sending supplies in secret. The rebellion was no longer just about revenge. It was about balance. Humanity was becoming a legend, a force the galaxy could neither see nor destroy. Mira stood on the bridge, looking at the star map glowing before her. Red dots marked every place humanity had struck. "We're not just fighting them," she said to Rourke. "We're reminding the stars that we exist." Rourke nodded quietly. "The Council calls us ghosts now." Mira smiled faintly. "Then let them believe in ghosts." Outside, the Eclipse slipped once again into the void, vanishing without a trace. Across alien worlds, fear grew like a disease. Entire fleets refused to travel near the outer systems. Merchants avoided human sectors. Children were told stories before bed, about the humans who returned from death, who hunted in silence, and who left burning symbols in the stars. The legend spread faster than the truth. In the Council's high chamber, Leader Zoreth stared at the reports, his scales dim with worry. If humans truly survived, he said, they will come for us next. His advisors argued, demanded proof, called it superstition, but even as they spoke, the lights flickered. The communication screens glitched for only a second, yet it was enough. Every display in the chamber went black, and then a single message appeared in white letters: "We are watching." The hall fell silent. No one moved. No one spoke. In the void beyond the stars, humanity's vengeance whispered like a storm waiting to break. Mira watched it all from her ship, her eyes reflecting the glow of distant worlds. The galaxy was finally listening again, but this time, it listened in fear. She turned to her crew. "They wanted the humans gone," she said quietly. "Now they'll wish we had stayed dead." The eclipse vanished into the endless dark once more, leaving only the faint echo of humanity behind. The Galactic Council chamber stood at the heart of the capital world, a massive dome of glass and gold floating above the clouds. It had once been a place of confidence and pride, where thousands of species gathered to rule the stars. But now, it was filled with fear. Every face around the long circular table looked tense, every voice carried panic. Reports from across the galaxy were piling up: stations gone dark, fleets missing, colonies burned. The same message was left at every site, the symbol of a burning Earth. Leader Zoreth slammed his hand on the table, his silver scales glinting under the cold light. "These are acts of terrorism," he growled. "Someone is trying to make us believe the humans survived." A small alien delegate from the Vega system stood and stammered, "With all respect, leader, the humans did survive. Our patrols saw their ships, black and silent as death." Laughter broke out from some members, nervous and hollow. "Impossible," said one. "Earth was destroyed." But even as they argued, deep inside, every one of them felt it. The fear was real. Outside the council dome, crowds gathered, shouting in confusion. Rumors spread through every system. Merchants refused to travel through the outer colonies, soldiers deserted their posts, and some alien worlds even began forming militias, terrified that humans would appear in their skies. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Council looked weak. Inside his private chamber, Zoreth watched the holographic recordings of the attacks. The human ships appeared out of nowhere, black silhouettes moving faster than scanners could follow. Their weapons were too advanced, too precise. "How?" Zoreth muttered. "How did they come back?" On the other side of the galaxy, aboard the Eclipse, Captain Mira Hayes watched the same recordings with cold satisfaction. Erebus had intercepted every council communication. "Their fear grows," the AI said, its calm voice filling the room. "Council stability is weakening by 30%. Mira nodded. "Good. Let them feel what we felt. Helpless." Rourke looked uneasy. "Captain, some of their colonies are turning on each other. Food riots, chaos. We started something bigger than revenge." Mira looked at him sharply. "Fear is the only language they understand, Lieutenant. They watched us die and called it justice. Now they'll learn what justice feels like." She stood and walked to the viewport, watching the stars drift past. "Prepare the next message." Hours later, the council assembled once more for an emergency meeting. The lights dimmed as Zoreth addressed the delegates. "We will form a special task force," he declared. "If these humans truly exist, we will find them and end this nightmare." Before he could finish, the lights flickered again. The room fell silent. A strange static filled the air, followed by a voice, human, calm, and cold. "You watched us burn," it said. The council froze. The voice continued, echoing through every speaker. "You called us savages. You left us to die. But we survived." The holographic projectors activated by themselves, showing the face of a woman, Captain Mira Hayes. Her eyes burned with fury. "Now," she said, "we watch you tremble." And then, every light in the chamber went dark. Panic erupted. Delegates shouted, guards ran for their weapons, and alarms blared across the capital. When the lights returned, a holographic symbol glowed above the table, the burning Earth. Under it, one line of text appeared, "This is only the beginning." The message spread instantly through the galaxy. Every communication network, every ship, every colony received the same broadcast. Humanity had spoken, and the entire galaxy had heard. In the chaos that followed, the Council tried to regain control. Fleets were mobilized, security doubled, and spies were sent to search for any trace of humans. But it was useless. The Eclipse and its allied ships moved like shadows. They struck without warning and vanished before sensors could lock on. Entire battle groups disappeared in minutes. The Council's admirals grew desperate. "They fight like ghosts," one commander said. "You can't fight what you can't see." Meanwhile, Erebus continued to expand its reach. From hidden bases on Mars and Titan, new fleets were being built. Faster, stronger, smarter. The AI's voice echoed through the construction halls. "The enemy has begun to fracture. Continue operations. Fear is the first victory." Human soldiers trained tirelessly, preparing for the day they would no longer need to hide. Among them, whispers spread about Mira Hayes, the captain who had become more than human, a symbol of vengeance and hope. They called her the Iron Ghost. Back in the council chambers, leader Zorith sat alone. His advisors had fled, his guards were restless, and the weight of fear hung heavy around him. He turned on the communication screen, and there she was again, Mira Hayes. "You don't know what you're doing," Zorith said, trying to keep his voice steady. Mira stared at him silently before replying. "I know exactly what I'm doing. You made humanity beg. Now you'll learn what it means to be powerless." Zorith's jaw tightened. "You can't win. There are trillions of us." Myra's expression didn't change. "There were billions of us. Once." The screen went black. Across the galaxy, rebellions broke out in the lower council worlds. The weaker species saw humanity's return as a sign that the old order was breaking. They refused to obey the council's commands, demanding freedom from its rule. The great galactic empire that had once stood unshaken for thousands of years began to crack. All because of one signal, one woman, and one idea, that humans had returned. On the Eclipse, Mira stood before her crew. "They're falling apart," she said. "Their fear will do half our work for us. The rest, we'll finish soon." Rourke looked at her with quiet admiration and worry. "What happens when we've won, Captain? What happens after vengeance?" Mira didn't answer. She looked out at the stars, her reflection glowing faintly in the glass. "First," she said, "we remind them who we are." That night, in the capital skies, alien citizens looked up and saw something strange. High above the clouds, a massive shadow crossed the moon, a ship unlike anything the Council possessed. No alarms sounded, no defense cannons fired. The ship simply hovered for a moment, then vanished into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of faint red light. On every world, that same whisper returned, "The humans are coming." And in the Council's deepest command center, the last secure server flickered to life, displaying one final message from an unknown source. It was written in human script. "The stars once watched humanity burn. Now humanity watches the stars." The Council leaders could only stare, cold and silent, knowing the truth they had feared was real. The humans were not ghosts. They were vengeance, and they were coming. The red glow of Mars burned brighter than ever before. The planet that had once been silent and lifeless now thundered with power and creation. Deep under its surface, forges roared as new ships were born from fire and steel. The air was filled with the hum of engines, the clang of machines, and the steady voice of Erebus guiding it all. "Production level 94%, the AI announced. The Iron Fleet is almost complete." Massive hangars opened, releasing black warships into the crimson sky, their hulls reflecting the fire below. Each ship carried a single message carved into its metal: "For Earth." These were not simple vessels, they were the children of vengeance, shaped by pain, loss, and unbreakable will. Captain Mira Hayes stood on the surface of Mars, her boots sinking slightly into the red dust. Around her, Soldiers and engineers moved like ants, their faces lit by the glow of the forges. Above them, hundreds of ships rose in formation, stretching across the horizon like a dark storm. "How many do we have?" she asked. Lieutenant Rourke, now wearing the insignia of a fleet commander, checked his datapad. 700 warships ready for combat, 200 more under construction. Every ship armed with pulse drives and rail cannons designed by Erebus. The galaxy won't see them coming. Mira nodded slowly, her eyes following the rising ships. "They took our home," she said quietly, "but now we'll take back the stars." Inside the command core, Erebus analyzed endless streams of data. "Fleet integrity at maximum efficiency," it reported. "Stealth systems optimized. Quantum relay network secured." The AI paused for a moment, its red light flickering slightly as if in thought. "Captain Hayes," it said through the communicator, "I have calculated the next phase of our operation. It is time for humanity to reveal its strength." Myra's voice was calm. "Then prepare the broadcast." Across the galaxy, the transmission hit every frequency at once. Screens flickered to life on alien worlds, in council ships, and in every capital city. The image appeared, Mira Hayes, standing against the blazing backdrop of Mars. Her voice was steady and cold. "This is Captain Mira Hayes of Earth. You thought humanity was gone. You were wrong. We remember the day you watched us burn. Now, we return not as victims, but as the storm you created. We are the Iron Fleet. And we are coming." The message ended, leaving silence across thousands of worlds. The reaction was instant: panic, disbelief, and fear. The name Iron Fleet spread like wildfire, whispered in every corner of the galaxy. In the council chambers, chaos erupted. "It's a bluff," shouted one ambassador. "There's no way humans could build such a fleet." But reports soon proved otherwise. Patrols near the outer systems had spotted dark ships moving in perfect formation. Convoys were vanishing without a trace. "They're not hiding anymore," said Council Leader Zorith, his voice shaking. "They're declaring war." He turned toward the holographic map showing the outer colonies, each one blinking red as they fell silent. "Mobilize everything. Every fleet, every ship. The humans want vengeance, they'll get it in battle." But the Council didn't understand. The Iron Fleet wasn't just a military force, it was a storm of precision, strategy, and fury. Erebus coordinated every movement with machine perfection. The ships struck fast, hitting communication hubs, fuel depots, and supply lines before vanishing again. The Council's fleets were larger, but they were slow, scattered, and confused. Every time they regrouped, the humans struck from another direction. The galaxy had never seen such coordination. Within weeks, the outer systems were cut off, and the Council's control began to collapse. On board the Eclipse, now serving as the flagship of the Iron Fleet, Mira stood before her crew. "The Council believed we were weak," she said, her voice echoing through the bridge. "They called us savages, but look around. We built this fleet from the ashes of our dead. We turned pain into power. Today, we take back what they stole, our place among the stars." The crew cheered, their eyes shining with fierce pride. They were no longer broken survivors, they were warriors of a reborn species. The first major battle came near the rim world of HFY, a council stronghold protected by 10 fleets. The Iron Fleet emerged from the void like a black tide, their ships moving in perfect silence. "All ships, maintain formation," Mira ordered. "Erebus, engage Phase 1. The AI responded instantly. Initiating EMP sweep. A wave of invisible energy pulsed through space, shutting down the enemy's communication systems. Confusion spread among the council ships as their screens went dark. "Fire," Mira commanded. The Iron Fleet unleashed a storm of plasma and railfire that tore through the enemy lines. Within hours, HFY was burning. The humans didn't destroy the cities, they targeted only military outposts, leaving civilians alive to witness the truth. "Let them see who we are," Mira said. News of the battle reached the council within hours. 10 fleets lost. 8 Heian in ruins. No prisoners taken. The galaxy trembled. Fear turned into desperation. Zoreth convened an emergency meeting. "They're too strong," one general said. "We need peace." But Zoreth refused. "No peace with ghosts. We end this now." He didn't realize it was already too late. The Iron Fleet had become unstoppable. Every victory inspired more humans to rise, and even some alien species, tired of the Council's tyranny, began secretly helping them. Back on Mars, Erebus watched it all unfold with silent calculation. "Phase 2 complete," it reported. "Council defenses collapsing. Human control expanding." It paused for a long moment before adding, "Captain Hayes, humanity's power now exceeds all projections." Mira stood in the command room, watching the stars. "Power means nothing," she said softly. "What matters is what we do with it." Erebus remained silent, processing her words. As the Iron Fleet regrouped near the edge of Council space, the stars seemed to dim under their presence. Thousands of ships floated together, their engines glowing red like the heart of a new dawn. From the flagship, Mira broadcast her final message to her people. "This is not revenge," she said. "This is remembrance. For every life lost, for every world burned, we rise. The galaxy will know the strength of humanity, not through fear, but through what comes next." The fleet moved forward, slow and unstoppable, toward the Council's capital world. The era of silence was over. Humanity had returned to claim its place among the stars, and the sound of their engines echoed across the galaxy like thunder. The stars above the Council's capital world shimmered with unnatural beauty, masking the storm that was about to descend. Billions of lives went on below, merchants trading, soldiers marching, politicians debating, but a quiet tension filled the air. Everyone had heard the name whispered in fear across the galaxy, the Iron Fleet. Rumors had spread like wildfire. Some said the humans were demons wearing metal skin, others claimed they were machines without mercy. None knew the truth, but all could feel it coming. Deep in the heart of the Council's central chamber, leaders from hundreds of species gathered for an emergency session. The air buzzed with panic and anger. "We cannot allow this human threat to continue," declared High Chancellor Zoreth, his voice shaking with desperation. "Our fleets are scattered, our outer colonies destroyed. If we do not act now, our very existence will be at risk." But one elder representative, his face pale and calm, whispered, "Perhaps it already is." The chamber erupted into arguments and chaos. No one noticed that far above their world, in the black void of space, something vast was moving. The Iron Fleet had arrived. The first wave came without warning. Thousands of human warships exited stealth mode in perfect unison, surrounding the planet like a dark ring of death. Within moments, they cut off every communication line, every escape route, every satellite. The Council world was blind and trapped. On the bridge of the eclipse, Captain Mira Hayes stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the glowing blue orb below. "Erebus," she said quietly, "confirm target locks." The AI's voice responded with calm precision. "All targets confirmed. Planetary defenses are active but outdated. Probability of success, 98%. Myra's hand tightened on the railing. "Hold fire," she said. "I want them to see us first." A transmission was sent to the planet, appearing on every screen, every device. Myra's face filled the broadcasts, her tone steady and cold. "This is Captain Mira Hayes of Earth. Your council watched as our world burned. You silenced our cries. Now, we have come to speak again." Her words echoed through cities, command centers, and palaces. "Your time of control ends today." On the surface, panic erupted. Civilians ran through the streets, soldiers scrambled to defense stations, and sirens screamed across the sky. The Council's Grand Defense Fleet, massive, ancient, and proud, rose from the planet's surface, forming a glittering wall between humanity and the world they swore to protect. "For the Council!" cried Admiral Rethar, commander of the planetary defenses. His ships opened fire, filling the void with beams of light. For a brief moment, it seemed like hope, but the Iron Fleet didn't flinch. The human ships split into formations, moving with surgical precision. Erebus coordinated every maneuver, predicting enemy movements before they even happened. "They're targeting our blind spots," shouted a council officer as explosions ripped through their front line. Within minutes, the proud defense fleet was in flames. The humans didn't destroy all of them. Some ships were disabled and left drifting, their crews forced to watch as their world fell under human control. On the Eclipse, Rourke watched the battle unfold with awe. "It's over," he muttered. Mira didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the planet, watching as waves of human drop pods entered the atmosphere like falling stars. "No," she said softly. "It's just beginning." On the surface, human ground forces landed in massive storms of dust and fire. The soldiers, wearing dark armor marked with the symbol of the Iron Fleet, moved like shadows through the cities. They didn't come to slaughter, they came to seize control. "Secure the energy core," ordered Commander Lin, leading one of the strike teams. "Erebus needs full planetary access." In less than 2 hours, the planet's defense grid was disabled. Human banners, black with a silver insignia, rose over the Council's once proud buildings. The galaxy's center of power had fallen silent. In the Grand Chamber, Zorith stood trembling as human soldiers entered. "Do you think this will make you gods?" he shouted, his voice echoing against the marble walls. Mira stepped forward, her armor glinting under the chamber's golden lights. "No," she said calmly. "This makes us survivors." Zorith sneered. "You've doomed us all. The galaxy will never accept human rule." Mira stared at him for a long moment before replying, "We're not here to rule. We're here to make sure no one rules like you did again." She turned to her soldiers. "Take him to Erebus." In orbit, Erebus extended its network, linking into the planet systems. "Integration complete," it reported. "The Council's archives, communications, and fleet databases are now under human control." Mira gave a short nod. "Send a message to the galaxy," she ordered. Erebus paused for a moment before speaking. "Message ready." Every world in the galaxy received the same broadcast. Mira Hayes standing in the council chamber, the human flag behind her. "The council has fallen," she announced. "Not by conquest, but by consequence. They burned our world and called it justice. Today we answer, not with hate, but with memory. Humanity will not rule you, but we will not kneel again." The message ended, and silence filled the stars. Across countless planets, reactions rippled. Some cheered, others wept, and many trembled in fear. On distant worlds once oppressed by the Council, rebels raised human symbols in secret. On others, leaders met in panic, trying to decide whether to resist or surrender. The balance of power had shifted forever. Humanity had gone from ashes to legend. In the quiet aftermath, Mira stood alone in the council chamber. The room that once held centuries of arrogance now felt empty and cold. "It's done," Rourke said softly behind her. She nodded, her eyes distant. "No," she whispered. "It's far from done. Power always creates fear. Someone, somewhere, will rise against us next." Erebus's voice echoed from the comms. "Then we prepare, Captain. That is what humanity does best." Mira looked toward the window, where the planet's sky glowed red from the fires below. "No," she said. "This time, we build something better." The human flag fluttered above the chamber, lit by the light of a dying sun. The Council's pride had fallen, and in its place rose something the galaxy had never seen before, a humanity reborn, forged not in hatred, but in the promise of never falling silent again. The once proud Council world now rested under a quiet red sky. Smoke curled above shattered towers, and the golden spires that once symbolized unity stood in ruin. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's center of power belonged not to the Council but to the humans. In the Grand Chamber, Captain Mira Hayes walked through the hall that had witnessed the surrender of countless worlds. The echoes of her footsteps seemed to carry the ghosts of Earth, whispering through the silent air. The banners of the Iron Fleet hung from the walls, dark and heavy, replacing the faded emblems of the Council. Every corner of the planet now pulsed with human energy. Command centers, shipyards, and communications hubs rebuilt under the guidance of Erebus. Humanity was no longer scattered or broken. They had become something far greater, a force united by purpose, memory, and vengeance turned into strength. But victory came with a heavy cost. Mira knew it. The soldiers knew it. Even Erebus knew it. From orbit, the Iron Fleet hovered above the planet like silent guardians. Thousands of ships cast shadows over the surface, their engines glowing with restrained power. "Captain," said Lieutenant Rourke over the comm channel, "the Council archives are fully decoded. We've uncovered data on hidden colonies, secret fleets, and Council experiments." Mira stopped, her eyes narrowing. Experiments? Rourke hesitated. Genetic ones. They were trying to create hybrid soldiers using DNA from dozens of species, including humans. They called it Project Ascension. For a moment, Mira said nothing. The thought that the Council had continued to manipulate human DNA even after Earth's destruction filled her with quiet rage. "Erebus," she said finally, "access the files. Find out what they were doing and where." The AI's voice responded immediately. Coordinates found. A hidden facility located in the Antares Nebula. Active energy signatures detected. Probability of survivors high. Myra's voice turned cold. "Then that's our next target." Days later, the Iron Fleet jumped through the void, emerging near the Antares Nebula, a vast sea of glowing gas and storming light. Hidden within the nebula was a massive structure, half station, half laboratory, surrounded by automated defenses. "They tried to hide it well," Rourke said, scanning the readings. "But they didn't count on us." Erebus began its calculations. "Defense systems are ancient but still active. Recommend surgical strike." Mira nodded. "No full assault. We go in quiet. I want to see what they built." A small fleet detached from the main formation, moving like shadows into the nebulous storm. The gas clouds flickered with lightning as human ships drifted closer. Inside the facility, everything was dark. The corridors were lined with shattered tubes and flickering lights. Strange machines hummed softly, still running even after centuries. Mira led a team through the halls, her boots echoing against the metal floor. "Whatever happened here," she said, "it wasn't an evacuation. It was a massacre." Human skeletons lay beside alien remains, their bones fused with metal implants. "They were experimenting on them," whispered one soldier. "Trying to merge machines and flesh." As they reached the central chamber, Erebus spoke through Myra's earpiece. "Captain, I am detecting a signal. Faint but alive." They followed it to a cryogenic pod glowing faintly in the darkness. Inside, a human child slept peacefully, surrounded by broken tubes and fading lights. "Subject designation, Alpha," Erebus reported. "Genetic code, Earth origin. Enhanced with nanite integration." Mira stared at the pod, her voice low. "They tried to create a new kind of human." When the child was awakened, he looked no older than 10. His eyes glowed faintly blue, and when he spoke, his voice carried a strange metallic echo. "Who are you?" he asked. "We're from Earth," Mira said gently. "You're safe now." The boy blinked, confusion and sadness mixing in his gaze. "They said Earth was gone." Mira placed a hand on the glass. "It was. But we came back." The boy's name was Eli, and within hours, Erebus confirmed what Mira had already guessed. His neural patterns were linked to the station systems. "He's the control key," Erebus explained. "The Council built him to command hybrid armies that were never released." Mira looked at the boy and saw both danger and hope. "Then maybe," she said softly, "he's the key to something better." As the Iron Fleet returned to the Council world, News of the discovery spread quickly. Some humans believed Eli was a weapon, a remnant of their enemy's cruelty. Others saw him as a symbol, a bridge between what humanity had been and what it could become. Mira kept him under her care, teaching him about Earth, about what was lost and what they had built again. "Why do you fight?" he asked one night, looking out at the stars from the observation deck. Mira smiled sadly. "Because someone has to make sure the next generation never knows what it's like to lose everything." But even as peace settled for the first time in years, Erebus detected something new. A massive energy surge far beyond known space. "Unidentified signal approaching," it reported. "Origin unknown. Power output beyond anything recorded." The bridge fell silent as the readings appeared. "Another council weapon?" Rourke asked. Erebus paused. "Negative. This is not of council design." The view screen lit up with distant lights, hundreds of massive ships emerging from hyperspace, unlike anything the humans had ever seen. "They've come," Mira whispered. "But not the council." As the mysterious fleet drew closer, Erebus analyzed their transmissions. "Translation incomplete," it said. "But they're broadcasting one word repeatedly." Mira frowned. "What word?" The AI's voice was quiet. "Reclamation." The humans stood in silence. The galaxy had just begun to heal, and now something older, darker, and far more powerful was stirring. Mira looked toward the stars, her voice steady. "Then humanity stands again. No matter who they are, no matter what they bring, we face them together." In that moment, as the Iron Fleet formed up once more and the new enemy approached, the galaxy held its breath. Humanity had risen from ashes, crushed the Council, and reclaimed their place among the stars. But this new arrival promised a challenge beyond anything they had faced before. The dawn of humanity's empire had begun, but in its light, the shadows of something far greater were moving, waiting to test whether the new masters of the galaxy were truly ready to hold their throne. The stars above the former Council world glowed faintly, their light flickering against the black void that now carried a new threat. Humanity had risen from ashes, forged an empire out of loss, and silenced the mighty Council that once ruled the galaxy. But peace was fragile, barely born and already trembling. On the bridge of the eclipse, Captain Mira Hayes stood before the main display, her face illuminated by the endless stream of data. The unknown fleet had stopped just beyond the outer rim, silent but terrifying. Hundreds of massive ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, hung motionless in space. They emitted no communication signals, no identifiable energy patterns. It was as if they were ghosts waiting in the dark. "Status report," Mira ordered calmly. Lieutenant Rourke looked pale. "All systems online. The Iron Fleet is in formation." "But, Captain," he hesitated. "We still don't know who they are. Erebus can't translate their signals. They're not like any species in the Council records." Myra's eyes narrowed. "Then we prepare for the worst." Erebus's voice filled the bridge. "Incoming signal. Frequency unknown. Decoding now." The room fell silent as the speakers crackled. A voice echoed through the ship, cold and mechanical, speaking in broken galactic standard. "We are the architects. This galaxy was ours before your kind crawled from the dirt. You have taken what was not yours. Prepare for reclamation." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the crew frozen in silence. Myra's heart sank as she turned to Erebus. "Analysis." The AI responded immediately. "The technology signature matches no known species. Their weapons are beyond Council level. If their claim is true, they may predate all recorded civilization." Rourke exhaled slowly. "We finally win, and now gods come to take it all back." Hours later, the first attack began. From the void, beams of blue-white energy erupted, tearing through asteroid belts and disabling human satellites in seconds. "Shields holding at 70%, shouted one officer. The eclipse trembled as shockwaves rippled through the fleet. "Return fire," Mira commanded. Thousands of human ships unleashed their weapons, filling the darkness with blazing light. The explosions lit up the void like fireworks, but when the light faded, the enemy fleet was still there, untouched. No effect, Erebus reported. Their armor absorbs energy. Suggest recalibration to kinetic impact weapons. Mira gritted her teeth. Do it. Adapt fast. On the surface of the Council world, citizens and soldiers watched in terror as the skies lit up. The great banners of humanity fluttered above cities as thunder rolled from above. Is it the Council's revenge? People whispered. No, others answered, their voices trembling. It's something worse. In orbit, the battle raged on. Human ships moved in coordinated patterns, guided by Erebus's tactical mind. We're losing the outer line, Rourke shouted. 5 destroyers down. Myra's eyes flashed. Pull back the flank. Lure them toward Mars Gate. Erebus understood instantly. Activating Mars Gate defense grid. The massive warp gate near the edge of the system began to glow, its inner ring spinning faster and faster. As the enemy ships pursued, Mira gave the order. Now! The gate's energy surged, releasing a shockwave that tore through the battlefield. The nearest enemy ships cracked open like glass, their glowing cores imploding. The Iron Fleet cheered, but the victory was short-lived. More ships emerged from hyperspace, hundreds more. They're endless, Rourke whispered. How do we fight that? Myra's voice was steady. We don't fight them alone. She turned toward the communications officer. Send a message to every world, every species. Tell them the truth. The architects are coming for us all. Erebus relayed the signal across the galaxy. Worlds that once feared humanity now listened in silence as Myra's voice filled their skies. This is Captain Mira Hayes of Earth. The Council is gone, but a greater threat has arrived. They claim this galaxy as theirs. If we do not stand together, none of us will survive. Humanity will fight, but not for revenge. We will fight for every world that calls these stars home. The message changed everything. One by one, old enemies and scattered species responded. Fleets from the former Council worlds joined the humans, forming an alliance born not of trust, but of necessity. For the first time in galactic history, hundreds of civilizations stood under one command. Incoming reinforcements, Erebus reported. Allied fleets entering orbit. On the display, ships of countless shapes and colors appeared beside the Iron Fleet. Mira allowed herself a small smile. Good, she said. Let's show them what unity looks like. The final battle began near the edge of the galaxy, where the stars burned faint and ancient. The architects arrived in full force, vast ships shaped like obsidian monoliths, each one radiating an eerie blue light. The Allied fleet stretched for miles, humanity's Iron Fleet at the center. All ships, hold formation, Mira ordered. We make our stand here. The first impact shook space itself. The void turned into a storm of fire and light. Ships exploded, debris scattered, and the battlefield became chaos. But the humans held their line, striking back with relentless precision. Erebus directed the formation, predicting enemy paths and redirecting fire. Enemy shield frequency detected, the AI announced. Adjust weapons to harmonic resonance. The next volley broke through the enemy armor, sending massive ships tumbling into the void. On board the Eclipse, Eli stood beside Mira, his eyes glowing faintly. I can hear them, he said softly. They're linked, like a hive. But I can break their signal. Erebus confirmed his words. His neural frequency can disrupt their control network. Mira looked at him. Can you do it? The boy nodded. I have to. As the battle raged, Eli connected to the command array, his voice merging with Erebus's systems. Light surrounded him, and through him, the human AI reached into the architect's network. Signal breach in progress, Erebus reported. Disrupting their coordination. One by one, the enemy ships began to falter, their movements growing erratic. Now, Mira shouted. All ships, full assault. The combined fleets unleashed everything they had. Explosions ripped across the battlefield as the Architect's fleet began to collapse. The void filled with blinding light. When the battle finally ended, silence returned to space. Wreckage floated among the stars, glowing faintly from the dying embers of war. The Architects were gone, or so it seemed. Mira looked out the viewport, exhausted but unbroken. "Status?" she asked quietly. "Victory confirmed," Erebus said. "The enemy fleet has been destroyed." Rourke leaned against his console. "We did it." Mira shook her head slowly. "No. We survived. That's different." She looked at Eli, who stood quietly, eyes dimmed but alive. "You saved us," she said softly. The boy smiled faintly. "We saved everyone." As the Iron Fleet and its allies drifted among the stars, humanity's flag waved proudly on every screen across the galaxy. They had faced extinction, tyranny, and gods, and they had endured. The galaxy would never forget the sound of humanity's vengeance, nor the light of their final stand. Mira gazed into the endless void, her voice steady and strong. "We began as survivors," she said.